Hi, it's Nick from the Run Testers, and this is our review of the Adidas Adistar. So the Adistar is a new big max cushion shoe in Adidas's range. It costs £120 in the UK or $130 in the US. It's got a 6mm drop from heel to toe, and as you can imagine from the size, it's quite a heavy shoe. It weighs 336 grams in my UK 9 or 11.9 ounces. Now, the weight is not hard to see where it comes from. You've got a really big, well-developed upper with lots of padding, and of course this huge midsole with two kinds of foam in it, and they're new foams for Adidas. We've got the Repetitor foam in the front and then Repetitor Plus at the back. Now the Plus stuff is EVA, it's harder, are designed to create a bit more stability around heel strikes, and then you've got the slightly softer Repetitor foam at the front there. So you've got this dual density midsole with a very pronounced rocker design to kind of smooth you through your foot strike and help you tick along on kind of long slow runs. That's what Adidas is billing this shoe as. It's a long slow run shoe, which is quite a niche idea, but yeah, like lots of max cushion shoes, it's built more for easy stuff in general. You've also got a kind of bucket seat design here, so although obviously it looks incredibly high at the back, that your foot does sit quite securely in the back of the shoe, a bit like kind of Hoka have done with its shoes for a few years now. You've got a bit of a heel bevel there to again smooth the transition from heel to toe, and quite a pronounced kind of effect there to try and counter overpronation. There are a few stability elements to the shoe in general, along with that kind of firmer foam at the back, that kind of slanting angle there on the foams, and then the upper's got, you know, a few reinforced sections around the shoe to try and stop you kind of slipping around, and then quite a firm section at the back here again to create a bit more stability. All in all, for, you know, a very high max cushion shoe, there's lots of stability elements here to make sure it doesn't create an unstable ride with all that cushioning. The upper also has mesh sections as well as a kind of midfoot cage to wrap the foot, and then loads of padding on the tongue. I mean, the tongue is as thick as my arm, and then there's a load of padding around the collar there as well. You know, there's no hiding what the shoe is for. It's for comfort, you know, it's designed for easy stuff, and you've got all the padding there to kind of really drive home that point, along with this kind of big midsole. And the outsole has a bit of a cutout, which I guess has saved them a few grams on the weight, and then a nice good covering of Continental rubber. Adidas does great outsoles, I think it's fair to say that. This Continental rubber is really good. It's really durable, grips really well. I've barely made a mark in it after kind of 75k of running in the shoe.
Fit for me then, I ran in a UK 8.5, which is my size, and I think I would stick true to size in these, despite the fact there's an awful lot of padding which makes these kind of a snug fit overall across the whole foot. There's just about enough room in the toe box for me, I think, and despite the fact that, you know, a lot of Adidas shoes come up narrow, these don't seem to do that, so I would recommend going true to size.
So the Adistar fit me true to size. It's got a really comfortable, upper design. It holds the foot really nicely.
For my run test then, I've done about 40 miles in the Adistar. That's been a mixture of 10Ks and a long, very slow plod. You know, my kind of at the outer limits of my kind of slower pace, all those runs have pretty much been done like that. I have done a couple of miles where I've just popped it up to see how it runs when it's a bit fast, but most of it's been done as the shoe intended at slower paces. As I said in our first run review, first thing I think you'll notice about these shoes, they look mad out of the box, you know, massive kind of chunky, oversized soles. You know, there's a huge amount of padding. You've got this tongue that sort of looks like my 90s LA Gear tongue. And, you know, I was actually surprised at how well they run. They look like a shoe that isn't going to run well. They feel like a shoe when you first put them on that won't run well. When you get them out, they're actually quite surprising. I was actually expecting to dislike this shoe. It's really not kind of my thing. I like less shoe in my shoe, basically. But they run much better than they look. And despite being a really heavy shoe, they actually don't feel, for me anyway, I didn't really feel like they felt that heavy on the run, which was another surprise. I think the other thing that's notable, despite the fact you've got this big stack of midsole foam and you've got two different sort of foam densities, they don't feel squishy like some shoes that are designed for this purpose. I think it's actually quite a firm ride, though I think you've got an insole that actually is a bit softer, and that kind of bucket-like sort of scoop fit that I think that softens the overall ride, making them a little bit sort of more comfortable to run long and slow. But overall, despite all of that kind of cushioning going on, I didn't really find them to be that kind of super soft cushioned ride that some other shoes offer. I'd say that shoes like the Bondi X, the Nova Blast and the Puma Velocity Nitro all run a little bit softer. Now, the other thing I'd say is I didn't find you got a huge amount of response here. It's more of a kind of a roll than a punch with these shoes. None of that kind of squish and response that you'll find with some other shoes. But I guess that's not really the point here. This shoe isn't really designed to be sort of firing you along sort of higher paces. It's basically designed for you to keep you kind of comfortable over very, very slow slow, longer miles. And I really enjoyed it actually when I used it for that purpose. I'm just sort of easing back from having COVID, so I use these for sort of longer, sort of very, very slower miles at the outer edges of my paces. So I'm sort of talking about 9.5 minutes to 10-minute miles for me. Normally I might be running something from like 6 or 7 minute miles. So it's at those edges where I'm just out sort of plodding, easing back and keeping my heart rate very low. And I thought they handled those really well, particularly up to a certain distance. The one thing, when I got into that kind of long 2-hour run, I thought towards the end, I was just starting to feel a little bit of foot fatigue that did make me question whether or not I'd like to go into the kind of 3 or 4 or 5 hour mark with these. You know, considering would you go and run, you know, a really sort of slow and steady marathon? I don't know if I would. I think maybe if you sort of have to build up to doing that in these shoes, they're not quite as forgiving as some other options that are out there. But overall, I think there is good comfort here. If you like a really heavy padded shoe, that, you know, you're getting a lot of sort of super plushness around the heel collar. That tongue, although massive and sort of slightly crazy, actually it does, you know, it does have this kind of enveloping feel around the top of the foot. The uppers, again, you know, there's lots of overlays. It's all quite sort of dense mesh, and this is all kind of wrapping the foot and holding you kind of tight and secure, and it just sort of feels a little bit like you're putting on, you know, a layer that's holding you in place. You've also got this big kind of wide base. And so although you've got a high stack of foam, I actually think that wide base makes these a really sort of stable shoe for such a high stack. So you've got a bit of sort of comfort and protection from that stability there too with this shoe. You know, that was a little bit reminiscent of something like a Nike Infinity React for me. You know, the other shoe that I've likened it to in the first run video was the Hoka Torrent, although that's made for sort of off-roading a bit. It had a sort of similar vibe to me in terms of the kind of firmness of the sole and the sort of wide platform that you get from that. Now, I don't think there's any surprise. This is the most Hoka shoe that we've seen from Adidas yet. And a lot of the familiar kind of the DNA of Hoka is sort of carried over here. You're getting sort of that high stack, you're getting that kind of rocker motion, getting the bucket seat. So there's a lot of Hoka sort of ideas, I think, coming through in this shoe. Just that you're getting an awful lot more kind of pronounced padding than you might find in most Hokas. The other thing I'll compliment on these shoes, that Continental outsole rubber, you know, does offer a lot of grip. I think good durability. The grip, I didn't get to test it sort of going around corners really fast because I wasn't moving fast. But it does grip on kind of, even on kind of wet manhole covers and bits and pieces like that, it would normally be a bit slippy. I found this had good grip, so that's a bonus. And I think the other thing to note from these shoes, they are built to last. You can see the durability on these, I think, is going to be really good. That foam doesn't feel like it's going to compress too much and deaden too much. It's already sort of quite firm, and everything just feels like it's going to stay put. These are the kind of shoes that I expect to be mowing the lawn in kind of about 15 years time, and them still to feel like they haven't really changed very much.
So I've done 75k of running in the Adistar. I used it for kind of most of my runs last week, and I've done kind of 2 long slow runs in the shoe, which is what Adidas suggests it's for. And like Kieran, I was really pleasantly surprised by how it performed. You know, when he opened the box, I was a bit kind of, what is this? You know, it does look too big, basically. But actually, when you're out on the run, it runs a lot lighter than it is. It even feels a bit kind of smaller than it is when you're running a kind of easy miles. It just ticks over really smoothly, and I was, you know, pretty surprised by how it felt on the run. Like, I have enjoyed pretty much every run I've done in the shoe, and I kind of didn't expect to. I'm not a huge user of max cushion shoes. I find there's so many really good versatile options on the market today that are really well cushioned or still being quite light. The Adistar isn't those. It is really a shoe built for kind of one purpose, but it does do its job really well on that front. Like, it is fun to use for those kind of easy runs, and even going up to kind of 90 minutes twice, I didn't feel like it felt big or unwieldy or firm at the end of those runs. It felt very comfortable, and I think I'd be quite happy to tick over in it for longer distances as well. When you are running at slow paces, the heft of it isn't really noticeable, I'd say that. Like, it doesn't feel kind of cumbersome or heavy. You can also ease through the gears on kind of long runs and end up running a bit faster at the end. And it was fine. If you go out, you know, with the express intent of running at pace, it obviously feels a bit unnatural. So I took it to the track for one run, just for a bit of fun. And I was doing 20 times 400 in kind of 4 sets of 5 reps. And so the first set of 5 reps I did in the Adistar just to see, you know, what it's like running kind of 75-second 400s in this shoe. And yeah, it didn't feel great. You know, it is a really big shoe. Like, you can still run fast in it. It's got a reasonably smooth turnover, but then I swapped to the Endorphin Speed Run Shield, and, you know, it's noticeable how much lighter and faster that shoe felt on the foot, because that is a versatile shoe, and this just isn't a versatile shoe. It's built for one purpose, and it does do its purpose well. One thing I did notice that it really, to run at its best, it had to be on quite smooth pavement. I found I was on a road with lots of potholes or kind of cracks and stuff like that, or, you know, little ridges where the kind of asphalt is kind of, you know, volcanoed up a bit. It didn't run as smooth at all. It really needs that full kind of ground contact with a smooth road to get the nice rocker effect, I think. So that might be worth considering if you do live in somewhere with really bad road maintenance. But yeah, all in all, it's been a pretty pleasant surprise, the Adistar. I've enjoyed running in it, and if you're sticking to those kind of slow runs in it, it does deliver in a way that you really wouldn't expect it to when you just look at it. So the Adistar does its job, and if you're looking for a max cushion shoe that is quite stable and maybe a bit firmer than a lot of the options out there, it does really provide that option. So one of the shoes to compare it to is probably the Adidas Ultra Boost, and I've only used the Ultra Boost 21, I haven't tried the 22 yet, but I did prefer the Adistar to the Ultra Boost. Now, they're both quite heavy shoes, but the way this shoe rides, that really smooth rocker, I found it just more enjoyable to use. I did find the Adistar could get a bit bulky and heavy at times, and just felt a bit clunky on the foot, whereas this, for all its size and weight, doesn't. Like, it is very smooth and enjoyable to run in. I don't, like I say, tend to use max cushion shoes myself. Like, I prefer something like the Puma Velocity Nitro when it comes to cushion shoes. It's just a lot more versatile, lighter, nimbler shoe, and it's still very comfortable. But if you are, looking for a max cushion shoe, I think it's one of the better options out there that I've tested. Now, if you're looking for a max cushion shoe with a kind of similar vibe, but in a much lighter package, the Skechers Max Road 5 is a great option. Like, it's because it uses Skechers Hyperburst foam, that even though it's got a huge stack, it's very lightweight, that shoe. I found that the kind of rocker in that shoe was a little bit intrusive. It was so pronounced, and I did prefer ticking over in easy miles in the Adistar, but the Skechers is certainly more versatile and works kind of as a general daily trainer that has a big max stack and a nice big rocker. And then I think my favourite kind of max cushion shoe at the moment, if I'm going to be using any, it's the Nike Invincible. I think that's just a really fun ride. It's very soft and bouncy, and it's quite versatile. It is lighter than the Adistar, but also it's just got a more propulsive ride because of the Zoom X foam in the midsole, and I did find I could use that for a range of runs more comfortably. The Adistar really is a shoe that just fits that niche of easy run, max cushion shoe. Like, in today's market, I think there's so many versatile options that, makes it a slightly harder sell. But for people who do like having a dedicated easy shoe, it's a really strong option. If you like a firmer ride and you need more stability than something like the Invincible is going to provide, this is a good option. And it's a little bit cheaper than lots of max cushion shoes at £120. And it's also, going to be built to last. Like, it really feels like I say, 75k in, the shoe might, well, apart from a bit of dirt, might as well be fresh out the box. I think this is going to last a lot of miles very comfortably. It's not going to go into my rotation just because, I just don't feel the need for this much cushion. And if I did, I would still go for the Invincible myself. But it's a compelling option that I think will work for lots of people. You can just tick over your easy miles on this. It's going to protect the legs. It's going to feel quite good on the run. And it's going to last a long time. So Adistar is certainly a shoe that I think you shouldn't rejudge just based on how it looks. It runs much better, runs much lighter than its kind of size and weight. But it is still a shoe that is only going to tick that box as an easy day shoe. It doesn't really have versatility. And I think there's lots of great options out there in the market that are a little bit more versatile right now.
So my verdict then, well, these shoes are a little bit of a surprise. They look bonkers. They don't run as bonkers as they look. I actually have enjoyed running in these at those very sort of slower paces, and particularly kind of a 10k out at the outer reaches of my pace. I thought they performed really well. My first sort of run back when I was coming back from COVID, where I had to take it nice and steady, they ran like a dream. I don't normally like shoes like this where there's an awful lot going on. I like things to be a little bit more simple, but I did find that they did the job well. If you're a runner who wants to run in some kind of with beefed up comfort, it's like a plush kind of saloon bucket seat ride that's sort of super hugging, then at slower paces, then I think these are an interesting shoe. Though if you're doing more varied runs across a sort of more varied range of paces and distances, I'm not sure that these stand up to other shoes out in the market. They're not quite as versatile as other shoes that can handle that slower pace but can also ramp things up when you need them to. So I think it's quite hard actually to recommend them over some other more versatile shoes. In my money, these got to speak to two trends that have come into the shoe market. One is a sort of trend for super niche shoes that kind of do one job. And then the second trend is for shoes that do it all rounders. Those kind of super versatile shoes that come in, around 100 to 150 pounds, but have a huge range, can go very easy, can go sort of fast, can take in those tempo runs. And these sort of come into that sort of former of that. These are a shoe that I feel like is kind of laser focused into one job. And, unless you're building a rotation with just sort of very, very distinct shoes very seriously, I'm not sure I would go for these. There's so many shoes that offer the versatility. I think on value alone, there are other shoes that I would recommend first. I don't think it beats the likes of the Hoka Rincon 3. I don't think it beats a regular Bondi. Things like the Nike Infinity React, I think the Saucony Ride 14 are all shoes that can handle those easy miles and offer you the protection and the cushioning, but let you kick up the pace when you need to as well, so offer a little bit more value for money. So while I like this running shoe a lot, I think for me, I don't think it would make it into my rotation. Unless all you want to do is run slow and easy, and this is the one shoe you're going to use to do that over and over again, I think there are better shoes out there, though I do think it's an interesting shoe from Adidas.
That's it, guys. That's our review of the Adidas Adistar. Let us know in the comments what you think of the shoe. Have you tried it? Did you find it a kind of pleasant surprise like us, or did you really find it was too big and bulky for you? Please like, subscribe, ring the little bell, and yeah, we'll see you next time.